Listen to this episode if you want the ins and outs of the health, wellness, and beauty world of how to scale a product-based business. Today, we are joined by Kayla Childress. She has been on the inside of building beauty businesses for years on the contract manufacturing side. Today, we are diving into what are the pros and cons of manufacturing? When should you do it? How do you scale a business? How do you really stand out in the saturated industry? And how do you really structure a product-based business for scale from the very beginning? If you have any questions around manufacturing, branding, marketing, scaling in general, today's episode will be helpful for you. Without further ado, let's dive in to my conversation with Kayla. Kayla, you sit behind so many beauty, health, wellness brands. What is something that the average consumer would really be shocked about in the manufacturing side of everything?
Oh, goodness. What it really takes to bring a product to life. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. We just walk into these stores and there's 100 options of lip gloss. There's 100 options of anything we could ever need. What really does that process look like to bring something from like concept to fruition?
Well, first of all, time. It takes a good, if everything runs smoothly, I'd say 9 to 12 months from brief, which that's what they're filling out for their dream product, to finished goods. So 9 to 12 months, that's for non-OTC, which we can talk about if you want to. OTC products take longer because there's a lot more testing. So that's probably going to be like 12 to 15 months. So time is a lot of it. And then just all of the moving parts from ingredients, packaging, primary packaging, secondary packaging, labels, regulatory, just all the things that go into bringing product to life takes so much time.
Yeah. And I think the time is something that deters a lot of people from wanting to actually manufacture something because they're like, well, I'm in my house, or like, I'm doing it in this commercial kitchen or whatever. I can kind of whip something together in a weekend versus having to have something manufactured. However, the manufacturing process really does take so much off of your plate in the long run. What are some of those misconceptions that you feel like people have when it comes to the manufacturing process?
So making things in your home is kind of scary. At a contract manufacturer, it's a controlled environment. There's a lot of steps and processes and SOPs that happen in that environment to make sure that what is being put out on shelf is safe for the consumer. And you really can't control that in a kitchen environment. As much as you think you can, you really can't. And so, I think anybody that's thinking of starting a beauty brand, they really need to consider a contract manufacturer and not doing it in their kitchen if they're wanting to create something safe. So there's a lot of different contract manufacturers out there, some of them with smaller indie brands starting at lower MOQs to help get your brand out there with a low entry point. But just look for a contract manufacturer. Don't DIY.
Yeah. Don't DIY it, please. So people are going to a contract manufacturer. I know that we've talked where you're like, I can take your current formula, I can recreate a formula if you want, or we can really do a lot of product testing. I know so many people out there, and again, maybe they've started in their home and they already have some sort of formulation, and then they come to you guys. What does that really look like?
Yeah, so there's 3 ways that you can work with a contract manufacturer. You have an idea and you want them to bring it to life. So that's basically starting from just your dream, starting from scratch. You might want to dupe a brand. I hate saying it, but dupe culture is huge right now.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
You might say, I really love this goop. Can you duplicate it? That's called reverse engineering. And a contract manufacturer can do that. Or you have worked with another contract manufacturer. They have your formula, you own your formula, and you come to us with a tech transfer. So a tech transfer is when you own your formula, and owning formula means like you've got not just the ingredients, but you know what the percentages of those ingredients are used, you know the suppliers that they come from, and a whole host of other things. So you're either having them custom do it, reverse engineer it, or tech transfer.
Yeah. Let's talk about the dupes a little bit because the health and beauty world in general is full of it. So everywhere is full of it right now. When you really comes to duping a product, I talk to a lot of people on the other side that they know that they're being duped as well. And it's something that, when you feel like you're some of the first to market or something, but it is a part of the beauty industry. How can you stand out in a world that really is duping each other? Because it is common practice in the beauty industry.
Yeah. And, I'm not a fan of duping, to be honest with you. I mean, I do try the dupes just to compare all the time, but I'm not a big fan of it. I'll be very honest with you. There's few reverse engineering projects I've actually done in my tenure. I think I can think of one. And it was kind of a medical lidocaine pain relief product, not even something like super fluffy. But dupe culture, it is what it is. I think most of the brands that I work with are usually coming to me with an idea, something that's unique and special to them, and may have 2 up to 10 products that they're benchmarking, which means they like the smell of this one. They like the texture of this one. They love how this one glides. They love how this one hydrates over time. And they'll hand those benchmarks to us and say, okay, I like this from this one, this from that one. So that's, I wouldn't say duping. That's more along the lines of, here's what I like about these few products. Now I want to put those things that I like and make it mine.
Yeah. How realistic is it to create something actually very similar to something else?
Well, it's not as easy as you would think because you don't have that formula. All you have are the ingredients. We call those inkies. We have the inky list, but we don't know the percentages. You don't know the suppliers that they're getting them from. You can take a stab at it and guess, but I see that some people will take a formula and make some tweaks and call it custom.
Yeah, here's the formula. Let's try to see this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think in the beauty world, it's really interesting because you walk into a Sephora or an Ulta and there's so many different brands. They all got an eyeliner, a foundation, a tinted moisturizer, some eyeshadow, a mascara, and they're all probably making very similar products because there's only so many ingredients that create something very similar. What actually makes one of the products take off? There's certain standards, like the Better Than Sex mascara has been around forever and it's classic and it's iconic. What makes that? Do you think it's the formulation and the results? Do you think it's the marketing? Do you think it's more the brand? What really makes a product that really stands out in the marketplace?
I think first and foremost is the storytelling. What is the story behind that brand? I used to work for a company years ago and they called that heart mark. What creates heart mark, with the consumer? And I believe that a product is only as good as its story and the person behind it. If you look at all of the successful brands out there, and what does success mean really, you're going to probably resonate with the story of the brand. And so I think story is the most important thing. You could have 2 products that are exactly the same, branded differently, with different stories, and one is going to fly off the shelf and the other one isn't, all because of that story.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's all brand. And if you look at some of the major breakout beauty brands, I think about Rhode all the time. They did such a great job of really creating a brand story, really creating an identity of what it means to be somebody that shops at that company. When it comes to story, what are kind of the tangible things that people need to create around story in their marketing?
Tangible. I think there's a few things that you need to create with your marketing. The branding itself, I think, is really huge. Whether it's colors, your logo, the name of your company. Some of these brands that launch, you can't pronounce them. What is that? Well, that's a weird name, but it's resonating. If it's become popular, like Supergoop, as an example, I remember when that brand launched years ago, everybody made fun of the name. Look at it now, worth almost $1 billion.
Seriously.
So it's hard to even describe, what tangibles a brand has to have. It's like everything just needs to mesh together.
Yeah.
That brand story, the color guidelines, the name of the brand, and then the assortment of products that they're putting out.
What role do you think like packaging plays in the actual success of a product itself?
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many packaging, flops I see out there. It is so incredibly important. I cannot tell you. I think one of the huge misses that brands don't do in the development of a product is some consumer testing. Even if it's just amongst 50 of your closest friends, making sure that the consumer is actually using that product. Glass bottles in your shower, bottles that you can't open when you're trying to shampoo your hair, products that aren't performing because of the packaging. It is just as important as the formula that's in it.
Yeah.
So, when I see a client creating something with packaging that's not going to work, it's my job to tell them why.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you see it all the time, even just videos that go viral or whatever. People buy it because of the packaging. And then when the packaging doesn't work, it's like, oh, all right. Like, I'm thinking right away of like the drunk elephant where you push it and like it pops up on the top. That's like packaging that was almost just like satisfying and people really loved it. It created like a cute little flower. Or recently, Alex Earle launched her new skincare line. And what did you see everywhere was people pumping this moisturizer over and over again. And like no product came out for like a minute and they had to just keep doing it. And there's little things like that, or like cleansing balms that are kind of like that shaving where you are shaving it right now. I think it's interesting and it creates some excitement around it. Like, ooh, I kind of want to try that. There's like a little bit of intrigue, but there is a lot of A, it has to work, and B, it has to not be to the detriment of the actual use of the product.
Absolutely. And there's a little trick with any pump. If it's not coming out, you do what's called priming it and you tap it on its side against a hard surface and then try pumping it again and it should work.
And it'll come. All right. See, look at that. Well, and I think like packaging is so fun. And I know from the side of just knowing the business side is packaging is a big expense for many of these businesses of their cost of goods sold. And it's oftentimes what is creating these higher end products. And it's why a lot of the drugstore makeup beauty products are in very simple packaging because that's where the money isn't going to. When you're in a development of a product, what is like the process? Do you start with formulation and then build packaging and then build branding kind of around that product? What does that really look like?
Hopefully during the formulation process, we have an idea of what the packaging is going to be. Might not be exact, but we hope to know that it's going to be in an airless pump. So when we're going into formulation, we know, okay, it's going to be in this airless pump packaging, or it's going to be in a jar, or it's going to be in a tube. So we've got to kind of keep those things in mind. So it's really important that R&D is kind of communicating with the client as to, I think this formula is going to be a little runnier or a little thicker. So that tube that you order, you might want to make sure that the orifice is a little bit wider because it's going to be a thicker product and hard to get out. So it's really important during that process that we're all talking.
Yeah. So you're in the inside of so many of these products, of the development, of the creation. I know there's a lot of people listening that have a health, wellness, beauty product. What are some of the major mistakes that the founders make in the actual process of scaling this business?
In scaling the business, I think planning, I think strategy and planning and rushing things can be a huge detriment. I understand the process of that. I have worked on the brand side and understand the demands of retailers and buyers. So a lot of what these brands deal with is having to rush to market with something because they've got to get it on shelf for, the holidays, let's say. I'd say planning and strategy, giving it the time and love that it needs.
So it really is how can we take the time, separate the time to really create the best product, have everything all put together and have it actually be cohesive?
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people we hear this messaging of like stay messy and like start messy. It's like in the beginning, you're almost just casting a wide net, hoping something sticks. So you're doing a little bit of this and then you're launching this product and you're doing this other thing. And it kind of eventually, your business almost morphs from where you were when you started. You thought you were going to be skincare. And then all of a sudden you actually launched a hair care product and then that one takes off. And you kind of just have to adapt based on what the market is telling you that they're either liking or seeing.
Yep, absolutely. The consumer is who drives your brand. They're telling you what to do next.
Yes, you just got to look at the data. You got to look at what's actually happening, the decision-making process of how all of that is going. So you really feel that, yes, formulation is obviously so incredibly important. It's got to work. But branding at the end of the day is what really creates it to sell.
Yeah, our market here in the US, the consumer expects it all. They want the great formula. They want the great packaging that's sitting on their bathroom counter. They want the great brand story. They want it all. The ingredient list has to be great. Oh, and of course, great price point too.
Yeah, well, and I think with the amount of options that you have to have it all. There's so many options out there that I have tried. I've tried a million moisturizers. I've tried a million different tinted moisturizers. I've tried a million different mascaras. Actually, I've used the same mascara since like 8th grade, and it's just the one that I've always used. But all of us have tried a little bit of this and tried a little bit of that. And if it isn't a good, well-rounded product, you're not going to be somebody that sticks around. It's just going to be one of those that you just kind of pass off.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah, we all do. And I have like jars of products that I'm never going to use because I bought it and then I was like, this isn't actually doing what I want. I don't really like the formulation or I don't really like it. And it's just sitting in a box that I've used, but like, what do you do with it from there?
And I'm going to trade shows all the time and getting freebies.
Samples.
And there's just stuff that I gift. Everybody knows they can go shopping in Kayla's office.
Yeah.
Because I just don't use 98% of it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get so many products from my clients that they send me and I love it and I love to use it, but I do love to gift it because I also get their thoughts on it. Every time I have a friend over, I'm like, here's my box of new things. Like, try one, please take it and try it and let me know what you think because I also want that feedback. Did this not work? Did that work? How did your skin react? All of that. So when we kind of talk into this scaling process and manufacturing, what really is the change in businesses from starting small, they're just kind of doing a first run from scaling? How does the manufacturing side really change when they are scaling up?
So I think what changes in manufacturing is the size of the manufacturer. It's how I explain who I work with now. Over 25 years, we've grown as a company. So our equipment has grown as a company. So usually smaller contract manufacturers work with the smaller brands. But then once they start scaling, they usually have to move to a larger facility that can accommodate their demands. I always say there's the contract manufacturers that can work with those smaller guys. And then there's those of us that work with the larger brands that are probably, I'd say, a strong D2C brand. They're probably just launching in Ulta or Sephora with a few hundred stores, doing, I'd say, 10 million plus.
Retail is a really big conversation when it obviously comes to this. I don't do much shopping in person and I still love going to an Ulta or a Sephora to try the products and pick out what I want to do. And like you walk around, it's great.
Yep.
Do you think there is a time that it's actually too early for these brands? I've worked with a lot of them and they're like, oh, okay, I just want to get into an Ulta. Is there a time that it's too early? And what do you feel like these brands need before they're actually ready to get into these stores?
Yeah, they need money.
A lot of it.
I think there's very few brands that start that just have endless cash flow. I mean, if they do, that's amazing. And if they can go into Sephora and Ulta out the gate because they are well funded, that's awesome. Most of them don't. I've known brands that have gone out of business after launching in Sephora or Ulta or had to pull out because it was too expensive. So I think money and strategy and really understanding what the partnership looks like. Yeah. I think a lot of brands, their dream is to be at one of those retailers because that's where they shop and their dream is to be on the shelf there. But the reality is they have no idea what all they have to do to be on that shelf, paying for their display units that are in there, paying for the marketing and advertising that they have to do, paying for freelancers to go in and sell through their products. So they don't usually have a lot of that information.
Yeah.
They just want to be there, but no clue as to what it takes.
Totally. And I think a lot of them think it's like the end goal. If I could just get into Ulta, my business will blow up, it'll take off, and it's all that I need. And it really isn't. It's like such a starting point.
I think the end goal should be, where do you want to be financially with your company? I know of a brand that is doing $200 million in revenue, and they're 100% D2C.
Yeah. Heck yeah. A lot of them.
I'll take that.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with all the other pieces of it. And I mean, even going back to Rhode, she was fully D2C until a year ago. She launched in Target, in Sephora. And it's the way to go because you build such a baseline sales. You have so much monthly recurring revenue online that you know that if you can't pay for the next 60 to 90 days for that PO that you just got, it's okay because you have this cash flow that's also coming in. So you almost have to build this stable, solid business that has a community that will go to Target and buy it, or go to Sephora and buy it from you, go to Ulta and buy it. They will help you sell through. They will show up. Even just having awareness. Like, I know when I walk through those stores, because there's so many options, I'm not buying a product that I've never heard of the brand before because I'm going to go with one that I'm familiar with. So if you're not known, at least in like a general sense, if I'm not like, oh, I have seen like a couple influencers talk about this, or I've seen them pop up every once in a while, I'll go and I'll like check it out. But if I have never heard of the brand, I usually skip right over it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Again, it's just not the end goal. It is a great way of sales expansion if your business is actually set up and it's ready for it.
And your margins, I mean, you're losing margins going
So
into
much.
brick and mortar. And so you get to keep those margins and do what you wish with them if your strategy is just D2C. So I also question the future of brick and mortar and department stores, and, you know, kind of wonder, like, are they going to be around for much longer?
If it's okay, I'm going to interrupt this podcast for 30 quick seconds to let you know about the Founders Cafe. It is my completely free podcast community where you can gain access to bonus resources, gain access to me and free coaching calls, as well as build a network of other business owners just like yourself. Business ownership is a lonely game, and we might as well build community, build a network, and have a space to collaborate. We can bring this conversation and all the other conversations we have on this podcast over into this free podcast community and make this a two-way street. I would love to answer your questions there, connect with you, see you on our next free coaching call. Click the link in the show notes and you'll find the link there. It's going to be wild to see. I really think that the retail world is going to expand into retail experiences a little bit more. And we're kind of already seeing it. Like, you know, there'll be like a cafe in a Lululemon, or there's like events or other things to do while shopping. Because even for me, like my friends and I, it's still like a Saturday activity. I live like probably more than an hour from the closest like mall. And it's like a Saturday activity that we go, we get breakfast, we get a coffee, and we're going to go and like go shopping all day. But it's an event, like it's an activity. It's not just like what we're doing on a casual day. If I need something, you can just order it online. It's more of like a desire of something to do, of actual experience. And I agree with you. I think it's really going to shift how all of this goes, because even, you know, if Ulta has to put a cafe or a coffee shop or something in their stores, it's going to lose out on a lot of floor space in those stores. Like, who knows what that really looks like? I think it'll be a long time before retail is fully gone, but it's absolutely going to change. And I've already seen it. You see it walking around Target. All of the brands in Target were digital first. You like start to see these brands that you've seen online popping up in these stores because online is what's creating the demand. You build the demand on social and then they launch in retail because the retail doesn't want to take a risk on these products either. They know that people will show up and buy them.
Right.
Yeah. Kind of going back to the operational side, when people are scaling, what do the founders need to be ready for kind of operationally for the systems, the manufacturing side to fully work?
The first thing that came to mind was a warehouse. You know, I think that a lot of them, when they start out, you know, they're doing things probably out of their home.
Yeah.
So, you know, having a great 3PL that can scale with you is definitely something, you know, to consider as a young brand. I think having the right people doesn't necessarily have to be full-time people. It can be fractional. but having a great team of people to make sure that you're able to scale and grow the brand with them. I think, the capital, I keep talking about money, but
it's necessary.
And, I think a really strong digital presence.
Yeah, it's crazy to see even in the last 10 years since I've been selling things online and helping people sell things online, how much things have changed, where digital was almost like an afterthought in the marketing strategy. But now we see major brands hiring their digital manager for like $180,000. Like their marketing, your social media person is one of the most important hires that you have, even in a corporate world. And they have full teams of everything because digital is first. It's where the most amount of touch points that you have with your founders. I think that's all really good. On the flip side, do you think that you're ever too young to really need a manufacturer, a fulfillment center, anything like that? Or do you really feel like people should, from the jump, be trying for that?
I think from the gate, because what you have at your fingertips nowadays, you've got smaller contract manufacturers that can fulfill with lower MOQs. You have smaller 3PLs that take on indie brands and that are affordable. So I feel like the businesses that have launched over the last few years to really focus on indie brands make it a lot easier for you.
Yeah, 100%. And having a good manufacturer, I think there's so many misconceptions around it. And I am really somebody that is so pro manufacturing as well. But so many people think that it takes your flexibility away. They think that it's going to be super expensive. They think that it's not going to be the same product that I can make in my house, which is just so opposite of everything. The amount of times that I've cut people's costs by 80% by getting it manufactured, your packaging looks so much prettier. Everything is done. You don't have to do the working in the business side of your business hardly at all because your product is just being sent to your door in a box or it's being sent to your 3PL and it's just delivered. And then it's the only role that you have is to run and grow the business. And it takes so much off of the founder.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Yes.
Yes. You've worked with a lot of founders in general. And I think it's a really interesting conversation of the founder is really such a major point of success for the company because obviously a lot of times they're either calling the shots or they're doing product development to a certain degree. Some of them have CEOs or whatever. But what do you feel like in the founder is necessary as characteristics of a successful founder versus one that kind of stalls early on?
I think a successful founder is usually the creative, behind the brand. They're the ones that have dreamt up the formula, have the vision, overall vision for the brand. And I think having them stay in that lane is really important. And it's hard, so many founders take on every hat of their company. And that's where I say, try to farm out pieces that you're not so great at so you can stay in the lane that you are really good at. Most of the time it's creative for them. So, for me, it's get that fractional CPA or bookkeeper. Get that 3PL. You don't want to be packing boxes in the garage when you could be doing the creative and doing stuff that you love that got you there.
Totally. And I think, when you outsource that stuff again, is it allows for you to actually work on the business. You're spending so much time. I have so many people come to me and they're spending so much time fulfilling orders or like paying somebody to fulfill the orders that you might as well send it out to all of these other people, have the warehouse, have the 3PL, all of that. And I totally see that most of them are creative as well. I think many entrepreneurs to start, I am an exception to this. My brain is a builder strategy brain to the end of the day. I can be creative, but I'm much more strategy. But I always say that the most successful businesses have a creative and a strategy brain and they blend really well together because they have such opposite things. Like a creative comes to me and they say, hey, this is the vision I have for my business. I say, great, here's exactly how we do it. I also see founders often hire more creatives that are creative. And then all of a sudden they have too creative of a team, too creative of a business without the strategy and the logistics and all of that. Where I always say it's this like song and dance of the art and the science of your business that you need both. And you're so right. Like the numbers, the data, the operations, the logistics aren't the sexy side of business, but there are people out there that really do love them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're going to go a lot further with the logistics tackled. And when the founder is in their own zone of genius and doing the things that they really love, it's another thing that I do so often is I think as a founder, as the business grows, they end up in the strategy bucket more than they want to be. And we're oftentimes kind of rewiring how their business works is we will break down the actual side of their business, of their tasks, I guess, of their role in the business to be back to what the creative founder really wants to be, because they need to be thriving in order for the business to thrive too.
Cannot agree more.
Yeah. When you're looking in the beauty, health, wellness space, are there any secrets behind the scenes that you feel like people need to know if they haven't quite jumped into manufacturing their products yet? Other than time or branding or anything like that, do you feel like there's anything being on such the inside that you think people on the outside need to know before jumping into a business?
Secrets. It's not easy. I mean, I know that sounds very basic, but it's not that easy. If it were, I've been in the industry for 40 years and people ask me all the time, why don't you start your own beauty brand? There's a reason I haven't. I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
So, just be ready for the ride and know that it's not as easy as you think it is.
It's something that people have to understand in business in general. I mean, I get the same thing for product-based business, and I had a product-based business, but I actually just love the growing of the business side, which is why I do what I do. But it is hard. In this world, we see a lot of videos of people, oh, my business blew up, or like, here's my beauty brand. We have 10,000 orders, where it almost feels like, I can do that. Why don't I do that? And you have this idea. And I see very often that a lot of these business owners didn't really, I don't know, there was like a fun thing that they were doing and they kind of like accidentally started a bigger brand than they expected to have. And then they're kind of at this crossroad of like, do I want to be a founder or do I kind of want to keep this as just like a little fun thing on the side? And you can't do both. You have to really go all in, especially in as saturated of an industry as beauty.
Yeah. Saturated. Yeah. There's about 10 to 12,000 new brands that launch every year.
Yes. And it's rapidly growing. It's crazy. And it's really cool to see from the inside, you're still able to differentiate. Like if you go and you look at these places, the industry isn't too saturated, but it is on you to separate yourself. It is on you to create that story, to create that brand, to create that product that really is very different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Last question, I think. When we really look at the beauty world, there's a lot of trends that go on. I want your opinion on the trend side. Do you feel like you should just build a business that has 10 great products and that withstands the trends? Or do you feel like because trends run beauty, you do have to kind of feast or famine with the trends?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I look at trends and I look at movements. Trends are those things that maybe last a year or two. They have this amazing takeoff and then they die on the vine. And then you have movements. And I try to encourage brands to really look at movements more than trends. If it's an ingredient like tallow, that's a trend. That's probably not going to be something that has longevity in the beauty world. But if you look at the movement of different types of peptides or other ingredients or biotech or things that I feel like are going to have more legs, and I don't expect everyone to know what's going to have legs, but I feel like those of us that are in the industry, we can sniff it out. So if someone's looking just to make a quick buck, then get on the trend wagon.
Yeah.
But if you want longevity, which most brands do, be unique, look at some ingredients that have shown the test of time and maybe they've just been reinvented. Right now, the whole GLP-1 and peptides and creating skincare around that is not going to go anywhere. That is a movement that's going to be here to stay. Mark my word.
Well, and there's so many things out there. And I'm thinking of right now, even just like in the last year, that all of a sudden you're hearing everything about salmon sperm. And then all of a sudden you're hearing everything about collagen. And then you're hearing everything about tallow. And all of a sudden it's everything that you see.
Right. And you're like, what do I buy? There's salmon sperm as an example, or snail mucin. They're coming up with vegan alternatives to these things because to be honest with you, I don't feel like those are sustainable. I don't know enough about those two categories to say if they're fair trade, ethical. I have no idea. They don't sound it to me.
Harvesting salmon sperm doesn't sound ethical to you?
No. How do you get that snail mucin? Like, I don't think I want to know. But,
yeah,
I think the benefits of those things might outweigh what they are, and something else will come along to replace them that's, I feel like, a more science-backed or plant-based alternative.
You can look at certain brands and you can tell if they are just riding the next biggest thing. And then you can look at brands that are creating and kind of blazing their own trail and just known for their own thing. And you get to basically decide who you want to be. But as you've said, it takes so much time to develop a product. And 9 to 12 months later, that you want to make sure that it's still relevant. Because I'm sure in 9 to 12 months, the snail mucin, that was really big a year ago, and I haven't seen as much about it recently. The salmon sperm, I think, is probably peaking a little, maybe over the peak now, but is it going to go away? And then are you creating this product? Whereas if you were to just create your signature products that work really well, that have a brand that withstands it, is actually creating something unique to you, where again, you're going to differentiate. And I think differentiation is the name of the game in the beauty world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that there are enough ways to differentiate yourself through ingredients, man-made and or plant-based nowadays, that you don't have to reach for some of those trends. I know that I'm not buying something that's got snail mucin or salmon sperm, and I'm not that person that I want really clean and I only use vegan. I'm not that person, but that not appeal to me at all.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the other point, is you do have to know your customer. Like, right. I am somebody that uses cleaner products. Like, I'm somebody that uses more natural products, and it's something that I look at. And I also think it's really interesting right now how educated the consumer is on ingredients. I think it's very different than it has been 5 years ago, even because of the internet. And all of a sudden there's like a PR campaign for salmon sperm and everybody wants to try it. And all of a sudden it's like, but that's the consumer that they're going for. You can create a consumer that is just trendy. You can create a consumer. Everybody knows the ingredients now. There's certain actives and everything. We just have a more educated consumer. So you just always have to be balancing this like dance of, do we go trends? Do we try to use the ingredients everybody's talking about? How do we balance all of it?
Yep.
It's a lot. Well, Kayla, this has been so lovely. I always like to end that if there's anything that you feel like in your world that we didn't cover today, that you feel like founders need to know, if you could like scream something from the mountaintops, what would that be in the beauty, wellness, contract manufacturing, whatever that might be that you feel like people need to know?
I don't know if people need to know this or if it's just an affirmation of follow your dream, no matter where you are. There are a lot of brands that launch every year, and I know a lot of big brands that started in their studio in New York or in their kitchen, and they're worth $1 billion or $500 million. So follow your dream.
Yeah. And it's okay if you are in your kitchen right now, but you know that there's so much out there for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Kayla, thank you so much for being here. This has been lovely.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you love this one, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation. If you want more conversations with me and other business owners, make sure that you join our completely free podcast community, the Founders Cafe. The link is in the show notes. You can get bonus resources, access to free coaching calls, as well as connect with like-minded business owners like yourself. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast 5 stars, share it with a friend to keep those conversations moving, and come back every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you there.